One director locked his cast inside a real tank for the entire shoot and refused to let them out. Another movie used authentic World War II armor that actually saw combat. Michael Pena said, filming one of these nearly gave him a mental breakdown. And veterans who commanded tanks in actual war zones called one film so accurate it felt like being back in the turret. These are the 11 most realistic tank warfare movies ever made. Number 11. Fury.
Just a ricochet. We're okay.
Fuck you, Jerry!
God damn.
David Ayer locked his cast inside tanks for weeks before filming even started. No hotels, no trailers, just sleeping in the vehicles and eating cold rations. He wanted them to understand what living in a steel coffin actually felt like, and it worked. Fury is one of the most visceral tank movies ever made, even if it is not perfectly accurate. The film stars Brad Pitt as a hardened tank commander, leading a Sherman crew through Germany in the final days of World War II. The production managed to get their hands on Tiger 131, the only working Tiger tank left in the world. It belongs to the Bovington Tank Museum in England, and this was the first time it had ever been used in a film since being captured in 1943. Tank veterans praised the film for showing just how outmatched American Shermans were against German armor. The Tiger could knock out a Sherman from over a mile away. The Sherman had to get close and hit weak points just to have a chance. The movie nails that power imbalance. The scene where Pitt's crew faces off against the Tiger is tense as hell because you know they are completely outgunned. But veterans also pointed out the problems. The final battle where one Sherman holds off an entire SS battalion is pure Hollywood nonsense. In reality, the crew would have retreated or been obliterated in minutes. Tank commanders do not make suicide stands like that, especially when they could just fall back and regroup. The tactics throughout the film also drew criticism. Real Sherman crews were trained to work in groups, using coordinated movements and covering fire. In Fury, Pitt's tank constantly charges ahead alone, exposing itself to enemy fire. That is a quick way to get killed, not win medals. The interior tank scenes are fantastic though. Cramped, loud, chaotic. Ayer shot a lot of it inside real Shermans, and you can feel how claustrophobic it is. The crew is constantly on top of each other, and when shells start hitting, there is nowhere to go. Veterans said the part felt right. The movie made $85 million domestic on a $68 million budget. Critics were mixed, but tankers appreciated the effort even if they did not love the execution. Fury is not a documentary, but it gets enough right to earn respect from the people who actually lived in those machines. Number 10. Lebanon. This one takes claustrophobia to another level. The entire film takes place inside an Israeli tank during the 1982 Lebanon War, and director Samuel Mayos never cuts away. You never leave the tank. Everything you see is through the gunner's scope or inside the turret. No exterior shots, no wide angles, just four guys trapped in a hot metal box, trying not to die. Mayos based the film on his own experience as a tank gunner during that war, and he did not hold back. The tank's interior is filthy, covered in sweat, oil, and eventually blood. The crew is constantly arguing, panicking, and breaking down. There are no heroes here, just scared kids with way too much firepower and no idea what they're doing. Tank veterans called Lebanon one of the most realistic depictions of what being inside a tank during combat actually feels like. The fear, the heat, the mechanical failures, the confusion. Real tank combat is not some choreographed chess match. It is chaos, and you are stuck in a tiny space with limited visibility trying to figure out what the hell is happening outside. The film opens with the crew receiving orders to secure a Lebanese town after an Israeli bombing. They roll in expecting minimal resistance, but everything goes wrong immediately. They accidentally kill civilians, their gun jams. The infantry they are supposed to support gets pinned down. The situation spirals out of control, and all the while, you are stuck inside that tank with them. What makes Lebanon so effective is the sound design. Every mechanical clunk, every shell casing hitting the floor, every panicked breath echoes inside the turret. When incoming fire hits the armor, it is deafening. The crew cannot communicate properly because everything is too loud, and that adds to the chaos. The gunner's scope becomes your only window to the outside world, and Mayuds uses it brilliantly. You see buildings through crosshairs, civilians running for their lives, dead bodies in the streets, but it is all distant, detached, like watching a video game. That is exactly how tankers describe it. You are not fighting people, you are fighting targets on a screen. The movie won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival in 2009, beating out films like A Serious Man and Antichrist. Critics praised it for being unflinching and deeply personal. Tank veterans praised it for being honest about what modern armored combat actually looks like from the inside. If you want to understand what it feels like to be trapped in a tank during a war, you do not fully understand. This is the movie. Number 9. T-34.
Мать снайпер!
Russia does not mess around when it comes to tank movies, and T-34 is proof. This thing is a full-blown action spectacle built around one of the most famous tanks of World War II, the Soviet T-34. The film tells the story of a Russian tank crew captured by the Germans who are forced to operate a captured T-34 for a training exercise. Except they have other plans. They are going to steal the tank and escape. The movie costs $7 million, which for a Russian production is massive, and you can see every ruble on screen. Real T-34s, real German Panzers, massive practical effects. Director Alaz Sidorov wanted authenticity, and he got it. Tank historians praise the film for its attention to mechanical details. The way the crews load shells, the way the drivers shift gears, the way the commander coordinates targeting, it is all accurate. The T-34 itself is a legend. It was fast, reliable, and had sloped armor that could deflect German shells. The Soviets built over 84,000 of them during the war, more than any other tank in history. The Germans hated fighting them because they were so hard to stop, and the film shows exactly why. The tank battles are brutal and loud. No slow-motion hero shots, just metal smashing into metal at high speed. Shells punch through armor, engines catch fire, crews scramble to survive. Sidorov studied actual battle reports and footage to make sure the combat felt real, and it paid off. Veterans who served in armored units said the chaos and violence felt right. But the film is not perfect. The plot is pure Hollywood. A captured crew stealing a tank and fighting their way through an entire German divisions is ridiculous. It would never happen. Real prisoners of war do not suddenly turn into action heroes. But if you can accept the premise, the execution is solid. The dialogue also frustrated some viewers. The characters speak in grand patriotic speeches that feel straight out of Soviet propaganda films. There is not much nuance here. The Russians are brave and clever. The Germans are arrogant and cruel. It is a very black and white portrayal of the war. Still, T-34 became a massive hit in Russia, making over $30 million and becoming one of the highest-grossing Russian films of 2018. International audiences were more mixed, but tank enthusiasts loved it for the practical effects and period-accurate armor. If you want to see the T-34 in action and do not mind a little propaganda with your tank combat, this one delivers. Number 8. The Beast. Kevin Reynolds directed this Soviet-Afghanistan war film, and it is one of the most underrated tank movies ever made. The setup is simple. A Soviet tank crew gets separated from their unit in the mountains of Afghanistan and has to fight their way back while being hunted by Mujahideen fighters. The tank in question is a T-55, and it becomes both their protection and their prison. The film was shot in Israel, standing in for Afghanistan, and the production used real Soviet armor. George Zunza plays the tank commander, a brutal half-mad officer who rules his crew through fear and violence. He is not a hero. He is a war criminal, and the film does not shy away from showing the atrocities Soviet forces committed during the Afghan invasion. Tank veterans praise the Beast for showing how vulnerable tanks are in the wrong terrain. In open fields, a tank is a beast. In mountains, it is a slow-moving target. The Mujahideen use the terrain to their advantage. setting traps, using RPGs from above, and forcing the crew into impossible positions. The film shows exactly why the Soviets struggled so badly in Afghanistan. The crew dynamics are also brutally realistic. These guys hate each other. The commander is a psychopath. The gunner is terrified. The driver just wants to survive. There is no camaraderie here, just desperation. When one crew member finally snaps and abandons the tank, you understand why. Being inside that vehicle with that commander is a death sentence. The Beast also does something most tank movies avoid. It shows the perspective of the people fighting against the tank. The Mujahideen are not faceless enemies. They have personalities, strategies, and a damn good reason to want this tank destroyed. It crossed into their village and slaughtered their families. The hunt becomes personal, and the film gives both sides weight. The climax is tense and unforgiving. No last-minute rescues, no heroic sacrifices. Just brutal, ugly combat in the desert where everyone loses. The film flopped when it came out in 1988, making less than $2 million. But over the years, it has built a cult following among military film fans and tank enthusiasts who appreciate its refusal to glorify armored warfare. Number 7. White Tiger.
Crew.
This Russian film is weird, mystical, and absolutely obsessed with tank combat. Directed by Karen Shakhnazarov, White Tiger tells the story of a Soviet tank commander who survives being burned alive in his T-34 and becomes convinced a legendary German super tank called White Tiger is hunting him. The film blurs the line between reality and myth, treating the tank itself as a supernatural force. The White Tiger is a ghost tank. It appears out of nowhere, destroys entire Soviet columns, and vanishes without a trace. No one knows if it is real or if the protagonist is just losing his mind. But the film commits fully to the idea, and the result is one of the strangest tank movies ever made. What makes White Tiger realistic, despite its supernatural elements, is the tank combat. Every battle is grounded in actual tactics and historical accuracy. The filmmakers used real World War II tanks, including restored T-34s and German Panzers. The combat is slow, methodical, and deadly. No Michael Bay explosions, just armor, positioning, and firepower. Tank historians loved the attention to detail, the way crews communicate, the way they maneuver for shots, the way they use terrain for cover. It is all accurate. Shakhnazarov studied Soviet and German tank manuals to make sure every engagement followed real doctrine. The mystical elements are pure fiction, but the mechanics of tank warfare are spot on. The protagonist, played by Alexei Vertkov, is a fascinating character. He barely speaks, covered in burned scars, and completely focused on hunting the White Tiger. The film suggests he has become something more than human, maybe even part of his tank. It is a strange, almost spiritual take on the bond between a tanker and his machine. The final act takes a bizarre turn. After the war ends, we see Hitler in a bunker, monologuing about the nature of war and violence. It is completely disconnected from the rest of the film, and critics were divided on whether it worked or ruined the whole thing. Tank veterans mostly ignored that part and focused on the combat, which they agreed was some of the best ever filmed. White Tiger did well in Russia, but barely got a release anywhere else. It is a niche film, weird and uncompromising, but for tank enthusiasts willing to embrace its strangeness, it is absolutely worth watching. Number 6. A Bridge Too Far.
Fire on it, sir.
Right, thank you.
Richard Attenborough directed this massive World War II epic about Operation Market Garden, the disastrous Allied airborne assault into the Netherlands. The film has an all-star cast: Sean Connery, Michael Caine, Anthony Hopkins, Robert Redford, and features some of the most realistic tank combat ever put on screen. The production was enormous. They used real British and German tanks, hundreds of extras, and filmed across multiple European locations. The budget was $26 million, huge for 1977, and it shows. The tank battles feel massive and chaotic, with dozens of vehicles moving across open fields while infantry tries to keep up. Tank veterans praised the film for showing how armored assaults actually work. It is not just tanks charging forward, it is coordination between armor, infantry, artillery, and air support. When that coordination breaks down, which it did repeatedly during Market Garden, everything falls apart. The film does not sugarcoat that. One of the most accurate sequences involves British tanks trying to push up a single narrow road while under constant German fire. They cannot spread out because the terrain is too soft. They cannot retreat because the infantry behind them needs support. So they just keep pushing forward and getting destroyed one by one. That is exactly what happened during the real operation, and the film captures the hopelessness of it perfectly. The German tank tactics are also realistic. They use ambush positions, wait for the British to commit, then hit them from the flanks. The film shows how devastating a well-positioned anti-tank gun can be against even the best armor. Tanks are powerful, but they are not invincible. And Bridge Too Far hammers that point home. The film made $50 million worldwide, so it was profitable, but it did not have the cultural impact Attenborough hoped for. Critics praised the scale and accuracy, but felt the story was too sprawling and depressing. Tank historians, though, still point to it as one of the best examples of how armored warfare actually worked in World War II. Number 5. Patton. Franklin Schaffner won Best Director for this one, and the film took home 6 more Oscars, including Best Picture. George C. Scott played General George Patton and refused to accept his Best Actor award because he thought the Oscars were a popularity contest. But what tank veterans remember most about Patton is not the speeches or the politics. It is the armor. The production used real World War II tanks, M48s standing in for Shermans, and actual restored German vehicles. The opening North Africa sequence alone features dozens of tanks maneuvering across the desert, and it is choreographed like a ballet. Veterans who served in armored units said the formations, the spacing, and the tactics all looked right. What sets Patton apart from other tank films is its focus on command. You are not watching from inside a single tank. You are seeing the battle from the general's perspective, watching entire armored divisions move across maps and terrain. The film shows how tank warfare is won or lost based on logistics, fuel supplies, and strategic positioning, not just firepower. The Battle of the Bulge sequence is especially praised for its accuracy. Patton's Third Army had to pivot 90 degrees in the middle of winter and relieve the surrounded troops at Bastogne. That meant moving hundreds of tanks through ice and snow with minimal preparation time. The film does not glamorize it. It shows cold, exhausted crews pushing their machines to the limit just to get into position. Tank commanders also appreciated how the film portrayed Patton's obsession with speed and aggression. He believed tanks should never stop moving. That hesitation got you killed. His tactics were controversial, sometimes reckless, but they worked. The film captures that philosophy without turning him into a cartoon character. The script, written by Francis Ford Coppola and Edmund North, was meticulous about historical details. They studied Patton's actual battle reports, his diary entries, even his letters home. When Scott delivers that famous opening speech in front of the giant American flag, he is using Patton's real words. Nothing was invented. The movie cost $12 million and made over $60 million worldwide. It became a cultural phenomenon, quoted by everyone from Nixon to Norman Schwarzkopf. Tank veterans still watch it, because despite being a character study more than a combat film, it gets the armored warfare right. The tanks move like real tanks. The battles unfold like real battles. And Patton himself feels exactly like the complicated, brilliant, dangerous commander he actually was. Number 4. Cross of Iron.
All the lines are out.
Sam Peckinpah directed a World War II movie about German soldiers on the Eastern Front. That is Cross of Iron, and it is one of the most brutal, unglamorous war films ever made. The film focuses on a German platoon fighting the Soviets in 1943, and the tank combat is vicious, chaotic, and absolutely unforgiving. Peckinpah was famous for violence, but this is not stylized Peckinpah violence. This is just ugly. Tanks roll over wounded soldiers. Crews burn alive inside their vehicles. There are no heroic last stands, just desperate men trying to survive against overwhelming Soviet armor. Veterans who fought on the Eastern Front said this was the first film that actually showed how nightmarish that theater of war really was. The production used real T-34s, and Peckinpah shot the tank battles like horror scenes. You never see the full picture, just flashes of movement, tracks churning mud, gunfire from unknown directions. The German soldiers do not know where the Soviet tanks are coming from, and neither does the audience. That disorientation is exactly what tankers described about fighting in close terrain against superior numbers. James Coburn stars as Sergeant Steiner, a decorated veteran who despises the Nazi officer class and just wants to keep his men alive. The film does not try to make the German soldiers sympathetic by pretending they were not Nazis. It just shows them as human beings trapped in a meat grinder they cannot escape. The tank tactics are surprisingly accurate for a Peckinpah film. The Germans use Panzer IVs and Sturmgeschütz assault guns, and they fight exactly like they would have in 1943. Hit and run attacks, using cover, trying to avoid direct engagements with heavier Soviet armor. When they do get caught in the open, it is a massacre. Peckinpah clashed with the producers throughout production. He was drinking heavily, going over budget, and filming way more footage than needed. The studio cut the film down from his preferred version, and Peckinpah disowned the theatrical release. But even in its compromised form, Cross of Iron is ferocious. The movie bombed in the United States, making less than $1 million. American audiences in 1977 were not interested in a sympathetic portrayal of German soldiers. But in Europe, especially Germany, it was a hit. Critics called it one of the most honest depictions of the Eastern Front ever filmed. Tank veterans agree. This is not a fun watch. It is exhausting, depressing, and relentlessly violent. But if you want to see what armored combat on the Eastern Front actually looked like, this is as close as cinema has ever gotten. Number 3. Kelly's Heroes.
That's my other dog imitation.
It's shot, Kelly.
On the surface, Kelly's Heroes is a heist comedy about American soldiers stealing Nazi gold. But underneath all the jokes and Clint Eastwood's cool guy routine, this thing has some of the most realistic tank combat of the 70s. And that is because they used real tanks and actually knew what they were doing. The production got their hands on genuine World War II armor. 3 working T-34s modified to look like German Tigers and real Shermans. The climactic tank battle in the town square was choreographed by military advisors who actually served in armored units, and it shows. The tactics, the movements, the way the crews communicate, all of it is surprisingly accurate for a movie about Donald Sutherland playing a hippie tank commander named Oddball. Speaking of Oddball, his character is ridiculous, but his tank tactics are not. When he talks about firing on the move, using high explosive rounds to suppress infantry, and flanking maneuvers, he is describing real Sherman doctrine. The filmmakers did their homework, then wrapped it in 60s counterculture humor. The final battle against the Tiger is a textbook example of how Shermans actually fought German heavy armor. They do not go head-to-head. They use speed and numbers, trying to get shots at the Tiger's weaker side and rear armor while avoiding its main gun. One Sherman distracts while the others maneuver. That is exactly how it was done. Tank veterans loved Kelly's Heroes because it showed tanks as mechanical machines that break down, run out of fuel, and require constant maintenance. Oddball's crew is always fixing something, scrounging for parts, arguing about mechanical problems. That is real tank life, not the Hollywood version where everything works perfectly until the plot needs drama. The movie also nailed the sound design. The engine roars, the track clatter, the metallic clang of shells hitting armor. All of it was recorded from actual World War II tanks. When the Tiger fires, you feel it in your chest. When Shermans race through narrow streets, you hear every gear shift. Brian Hutton directed this, and he deliberately mixed comedy with realistic action. The result confused critics in 1970. Some loved it, others hated it. Nobody knew what genre it was supposed to be. But it made $40 million on a $4 million budget, so audiences did not care about genre confusion. Decades later, Kelly's Heroes is a cult classic. Tank enthusiasts watch it specifically for the armor combat, ignoring the heist plot entirely. And military historians point to it as proof that you can make a funny war movie without sacrificing technical accuracy. The tanks in Kelly's Heroes move and fight like real tanks, even if the guys inside them are cracking jokes the whole time. Number 2. Sahara.
Save your ammo!
The 1995 version, not the Bogart original. Brian Trenchard Smith directed this remake for Showtime, and it went straight to cable with zero fanfare. James Belushi plays an American tank commander leading a mismatched crew across the North African desert during World War II. The budget was low, the cast was B-list, and absolutely nobody expected it to be any good, except it was. Tank veterans call Sahara one of the most accurate depictions of M3 Lee tank operations ever filmed. The Lee was a weird, awkward tank with a hull-mounted 75mm gun and a smaller turret on top. It was tall, mechanically unreliable, and crews hated it. The film does not pretend otherwise. Trenchard Smith used a real M3 Lee borrowed from a private collector, and he made sure every detail was right. The way the crew loads shells, the way the driver navigates rough terrain, the way the commander coordinates between the two different guns. It is all accurate. Tank historians praise the film for showing how difficult the Lee was to operate compared to German armor. The plot is simple. Belushi's crew gets separated from their unit and has to cross the desert to reach Allied lines. Along the way, they pick up stragglers, a British medic, a Sudanese soldier, a Free French officer. The whole thing becomes a survival story, where the tank is both their only protection and a constant mechanical nightmare. What makes Sahara realistic is the attention to the tank's limitations. It keeps breaking down, the engine overheats, they run low on fuel, water, ammunition. Every decision is a trade-off. Do they fight and risk running out of ammo, or do they avoid contact and risk getting caught in the open? Real tank crews faced those choices constantly. The final battle is a siege. The crew finds a desert well and has to defend it against a much larger German force. They use the terrain, set traps, ration their ammunition. It is not flashy, but it is tense as hell. Veterans said the desperation felt real. When you are outnumbered and low on supplies, you do not go out in a blaze of glory. You make every shot count and hope reinforcements arrive before you run dry. Sahara never got a theatrical release, and barely anyone saw it. But among tank enthusiasts and military history buffs, it has a devoted following. It is proof that you do not need a massive budget or A-list stars to make an accurate tank film. You just need people who care about getting the details right. Number 1. The Big Red One. Samuel Fuller fought in World War II with the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, and this film is his memoir. He wrote it, directed it, and poured every brutal detail he remembered into it. The result is one of the most authentic war films ever made. And the tank combat is shockingly realistic, considering Fuller shot it in 1980 on a tiny budget. Lee Marvin plays the sergeant, a fictionalized version of Fuller himself, leading a rifle squad from North Africa through Sicily, D-Day, and into Germany. The squad is attached to armored units throughout the war, and Fuller shows exactly how infantry and tanks work together in combat, or, more accurately, how they try to work together and often fail. The tank scenes are not glamorous. Crews are exhausted, scared, and frustrated. The Shermans break down constantly. Communication between tanks and infantry is a disaster. Friendly fire happens. Men die from stupid mistakes, not heroic sacrifices. Fuller refused to romanticize any of it because he lived through it and knew better. What makes the Big Red One special is Fuller's eye for small, true details. The way a tank commander uses hand signals because the radio is out. The way infantry huddles behind a Sherman for cover, then scatters when it draws fire. The way tank crews refuse to button up even under fire because they need to see what is happening. Veterans said those tiny moments are what separated Fuller's film from every other World War II movie. The production was a nightmare. The budget was $4 million, nothing for a war epic. Fuller had to use Yugoslav army tanks painted to look like Shermans and Panzers. The studio cut the film down from Fuller's 4.5-hour cut to under 2 hours. Fuller was furious, said they butchered his life's work. Decades later, film critic Richard Schickel found Fuller's original footage and restored the film to 263 minutes. The reconstruction premiered in 2004, and suddenly, The Big Red One went from a flawed war movie to a masterpiece. The extended version included entire tank battles that had been cut, plus scenes showing the mechanical failures and logistical nightmares Fuller experienced. Tank veterans who saw the restored version called it the most honest depiction of armored warfare they had ever seen. Not the most exciting, not the most heroic, but the most true. Fuller did not care about making tanks look cool. He cared about showing what it was actually like to fight a war in, around, and alongside them. The Big Red One made less than $7 million in its original release and was considered a commercial failure, but the restored version changed its legacy completely. It is now taught in film schools and military academies as the definitive World War II infantry film, and the tank combat is held up as the gold standard for realism over spectacle. Hollywood loves tank movies because armor looks great on screen. But the films that actually get it right are rare. Most directors care more about explosions than accuracy. The ones on this list did the work, studied the history, and showed what tank warfare really looked like. Slow, brutal, and nothing like the movies usually show it.